want to up that. And so in 2025 in Bellevue, we will definitely have very exciting topics. And my, I guess, focus for the three, they all come in threes, right? Not just three brothers, but I am definitely concentrating on tourism. As you know, FIFA games are coming to both British Columbia and Washington State in 2026. So we're busy preparing for that and convening people to talk to one another. And then, of course, innovations, including life sciences, as well as, of course, infrastructure such as broadband, because Washington State, we are due to have access to $1.23 billion in BEAD funding for our broadband and other technologies from the federal government over the next 5 years. And actually, the NOFO went out yesterday. So if you are in the broadband business, please be sure to check out Washington State's website. So with that, did I do enough, Matt?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other highlights of Bellevue that you want to?
Oh, boy. Staff, tourism definitely will be covering Regional Tourism Council. If you have not heard about it yet, all 10 jurisdictions are involved. We wanted to make sure that there was both a legislator or MLAs, some government person and an industry person. So there's 20 members. I think there's a couple of states that need one or two more, one member of one side or the other. And so we want a full 20-member council, plus any and all indigenous and tribal nations. You have the right to be at the table. So please sign up. I know many tribal governments and indigenous people, you're wearing so many different hats. I know you're super busy, but please send people, because we want to make sure we have a very successful, of course, FIFA season. But even beyond that, we want to make sure that we, when the world's eyes on the Pacific Northwest, we want them to come and stay longer and spread out the love to your states and more rural areas of the region. Right? Good. I'm getting approval from staff. I love being stroked.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cindy. And now let's go to Delana Johnson, who's chairing our meeting here in Alaska. And Delana, thank you for all the preparations. Do you want to make a few comments about our being here and with RDC?
Certainly. Thank you. It's really good to have everyone here. It's good to see all these familiar faces, but usually I see you elsewhere. So good to have you here right in our hometown of Anchorage. And you ordered up some really nice weather. I'm glad you got to see Alaska when it's sunny. It's always so much nicer, and you can even see Denali a little bit right here from Anchorage. So make sure and take a look around. I brought in some visitor guides and so on, and I left them on the table out front. And so there's some guides and some reading material for anyone that wants to take a look. And if you have a chance to get out of town, I'd also encourage that if you can. It's very exciting to have our winter meeting in conjunction with the Alaska's Resource Development Council. And I'm excited about the opportunity to have some very robust programming, just because we do have this collaboration this year with Resource Development Council. And I would encourage everyone, if you're not familiar with RDC, RDC is a statewide trade association comprised of individuals and companies from Alaska's fishing, forestry, mining, oil and gas, and tourism industry. And RDC membership includes Alaska Native corporations, local communities, organized labor, industry support firms, and their purpose is to encourage a strong, diversified private sector in Alaska and expand the state's economic base through responsible development of our natural resources. So one thing I'd really encourage, and one of my favorite things about the Resource Development Council annual convention, is their exhibit hall. And so what you'll find is a lot of local people that are actually there at those exhibits that you can get a local flavor. You really get to talk to people that are not just a long ways away from the industry that they're representing. You know, they're not just a suit. These are, many of the people are here with their, that are actually running these companies and being a definite part of it. So please take a good look at I always enjoy looking through the exhibit hall, just because it's a little bit of a hike to get there. And because we have the major people, major companies as well there represented. So thank you to the RDC. I've also I brought the guidebooks, and I just encourage you to please take a guidebook and get outside a little bit and enjoy as much of the beauty of Alaska that you can, and also enjoy this time that we have to talk to each other about the things that we know that we hold in common. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the time here. Very good.
Well, thank you so much, Representative, and thanks for all your help in preparing. The reception tonight will be in the midst, I think, of the trade show. So you'll have another chance to mingle with all the folks up there. And Delana, could you just mention briefly, Layla has made a special opportunity for us tomorrow morning during the RDC convention, where we'll have a joint session.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So Layla is the executive director for the Resource Development Council, and she's really brought a lot of energy to the organization and a lot of hard work. She's worked with our national delegation and is throughout Alaska, has a long history here in her family. So it's been a real pleasure to work with Layla and the RDC as we brought the PNWER and RDC kind of together. It's just such a natural fit, and it's worked really well. So tomorrow morning, we are having a number, I guess our similar panel to what we have right here, and we're going to be talking about the benefits of PNWER and how PNWER in the legislature and with has encouraged and the economic development and the partnership with Canada that is so integral to so much that we talk about here. So that will be happening tomorrow at 8:45, and I hope to see as many of you as you can make it.
Thank you so much. When PNWER was formed, the founders really recognized that you can't get to Alaska except through Canada. So it was a big part of the foundation of PNWER, was connecting Alaska through Canada to the rest of the lower 48. So I think if we could move forward the slides, what we had in mind here was to do a quick election update, looking at the various states. We've had 7 of our 10 jurisdictions had elections in the last 3 weeks. So not only the US states, but 2 provinces. So let's move forward to the next slide and see, okay, BC. I think I'll cover that since they have no government yet. It was a dramatic election in BC. So the current state of affairs is the NDP has 47 seats, which was the requirement to have a majority government. The Conservatives ended up with 44, and the Green Party has 2. So the challenges that they have right now is picking a speaker, because usually the speaker comes from the majority. But if the majority gives 1, then they could be outvoted by the other 2 parties. So that's behind the scenes. Those are things going on in BC. The new government will be announced on the 18th, next Monday. There'll be a new cabinet formed. So it was very close election, very tumultuous. The Conservative Party didn't exist 8 months ago, and the opposition party collapsed in the middle of the election process. And there's a long story behind that. I won't go into it, but it's extraordinary. And I guess that's all I'll say, but it's important for Alaskans to know what's across the border here. And it will be a different government, even though the same leadership with NDP, I think they'll be, it's going to be very tight. You know, they're going to, it'll be hard for them to travel because the government can be unseated if they lose one vote on a major bill. So everyone's got to be in the House. It's going to be the situation. So next slide. Saskatchewan. Do we have Travis on the line? Travis Kiesig is our vice president from Saskatchewan.
I don't know. Can you hear
Travis,
me,
are you
Matt?
there?
Can you hear me, Matt?
We can't hear Travis, but he is there.
Oh, I'm here. It's
I'm trying to
showing
unmute you,
unmuted
Travis.
on my end.
He's not muted.
It's just the connection.
His microphone would be muted.
I thought we tested this.
Darn technology is always a challenge.
Okay, there you go, Travis. Why don't you start again? We can hear you.
Sure. Can you all hear me? Everything's good?
He says MLA Getson is my hero.
No, I did not say, whoa. I did not say that MLA Getson was my hero. He's definitely a colleague, but I wouldn't say he's my hero.
Okay.
The Saskatchewan election went very well.
You guys don't have an exterior speaker that can go through Zoom?
Oh. Can everyone hear me? Good.
All right, I better move on, I guess. Well, as you can see, the Saskatchewan Party did win a majority. And our Vice President Travis Kiesig, who is on the line, is the new Minister of Environment. So
Big round of applause for Travis.
yeah. And he wrote to me, he said, I feel so well prepared because of PNWER and quagga mussels and all the stuff that we have worked on. So Travis, congratulations and congratulations to the Sask Party. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, this I'm going to ask Shane to just give an overview for our American friends about what's the current state of affairs in Ottawa. They didn't have an election, although it's coming, but if you could do an objective state of affairs, Shane, that would be great.
Let's focus on the.
Yeah, so objective, this is going to be difficult for me, you guys. You heard me in the last one. So for those that don't understand the Canadian spectrum, red is blue, blue is red. I know, look at, but we've never been closer right now to a federal election than we are right now. Lowest popularity ever, and this is being objective. This is literally in the papers. Lowest popularity ever for ever a Canadian president is the one we have right now. So there's lots of strife in the country. You guys kind of went through that a little while ago. We're hoping for similar outcomes up north. At least that's my opinion on the matter. We, in all likelihood, would have an election within the next 16 to 18 months if it runs its course. And that's what we'll be looking at right now. There's, at a subnational level, there's, and I can speak a little bit, and this is just objectives. These are items that you'll probably see in the newspapers. And Peter had mentioned up here earlier, some federal overreach in a number of different files. Our provinces work a little bit different than the states, in so much as the provinces have jurisdiction when it comes to energy matters with doing that. There's some joint overlap on agriculture and environment, but a lot of the files that traditionally would be federal files with the states are actually provincial files in Canada. So that's kind of where we're at. We're waiting for that next election.
So the Trudeau's government is a minority government.
Yeah, so
And-
what they end up doing with the NDP they formed it was a written coalition essentially, which is brand new for us. Normally there might be a backroom handshake deal. So the second official opposition, I guess, kind of did a quasi coalition, and they were going to maintain the minority government in power. And they recently tore that up for the cameras, and we'll see how it works in practicality when it comes to voting.
Okay, are there any questions for anyone about the Ottawa government?
I have a lot.
Not usually. Okay, okay, let's go to the next slide. You
Well,
can,
there was one question there. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, can we go back?
Yeah.
One.
so the Liberal parties is like socialist light. The NDP is like socialist straight. And then the Conservative Party is like a centrist Republican Party, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, this is Canadian politics. So the Quebec Party, literally the Bloc Québécois, they're a separatist party that's a federal party that represents the province of Quebec. And then the Green Party or the Independents, the Green Party. Yeah, we've got a mixed bag of nuts. Like you guys got two parties, that makes it really easy. We've got a, I'll let the chips fall where they may type of environment. And it just depends on which end of the political spectrum that they may end up in. Very much regionally based as well. You'll see Quebec politics is a little bit different. At a subnational level, we get along with them like peanut butter and jelly. Federally, it's a little bit of a different item because they literally are Quebec first. The rest of the country doesn't matter because we're Quebec. Like, not putting too much polish on it, but that's kind of it. And then we work as a coalition, if you would, across the country within those areas.
And the federal parties who might be the same name are not related to the provincial parties.
Oh,
in
except the
many
NDP.
cases. In some cases.
Yeah, except the NDP, which is wild. So again, the NDP at a federal level, each provincial chapter is essentially the same party, and then all the other parties are independent. So even though I might be a Conservative Party in Alberta, that doesn't mean I'm a member of the Conservative Party federally. So they're literally different entities. So it's really a lot of collaboration that you are forced to do, and you might have different views along that political spectrum, even though you might have a Dem or Republican view on it, so to speak. It's varied, and you have different parties that work together.
All right, thank you. This is, I know, the beginning of more dialogue, but that's great. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And this is the one that's the most open. And I'll just ask Delana to see if she has any comments on Alaska's. They're still waiting to count 22,000 votes from the bush and from all over, but Representative Johnson.
Well, thank you, Matt. I was hoping that you guys would explain this to me. It's a lot of, right now we have, it's very, very open. I have some details here, but, we have other things in the mix in the sense that it's rumored as if the governor may be appointed to a post out east, which would also require the lieutenant governor to move forward. So we, into the governor's position. It looks like, let's see, I guess I can just kind of go through this. A lot of the votes are still out. Right now we have 20 members in the Senate, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans were elected this time. And none of those seats flipped parties, but 1 incumbent retired, 1 was defeated, and there was a race in Fairbanks that's not yet been called. And so right now we have pure composition in the Senate is 11 Republicans and 9 Democrats, but it kind of looks like there'll be a 6-member minority in the Senate. We did not have that, and who knows? I mean, I'm just kind of saying things here, and it could change. It could change tomorrow, or it could change in an hour or so. But there was a coalition in the Senate last year, and there was, I think, not even enough people in the Senate to have a recognized minority. So, it's possible there will be an actual minority and then a kind of a bipartisan coalition for in the Senate leadership. And then our House races are a lot less certain than the Senate as usual. We have 2 races that are too close to call. One that's, I think it says 19 votes, but I don't know if that's an updated number. It might actually be a few even less than that with, several, I think about, I can't remember how many thousand out to, so that's too close to call, and we should know more in the next couple days. We expect, of course, we have ranked choice voting too, which there's at least one race that looks like, is up for grabs when it goes to maybe when it goes to the second round of the ranking of the votes. We don't know, doesn't look like it's going to change the party of the seat, but it does look like it's possible it could change who's the leader in that one.
And could you explain ranked choice voting?
Well, in fact, it's not been highly popular, necessarily successful, I guess, in Alaska, but because it's on the ballot, it's actually a ballot measure this year, and it's at this time down there's about 3,000 votes. It's about 3,000 votes ahead to repeal that, but that's still not that many votes when you talk about the numbers that are out. I don't have the exact number of out right now, but I want to say around 25,000 is still out. And we still have votes coming in. They have to be in by the 15th for overseas voting. So anyway, ranked choice voting is we have actually the highest number of lines that you could rank, and I believe it's 4. And so you rank them, and the person that if one person gets 50%, then it's done and they are declared the winner. But if there's not a 50% majority, then you go to the next person, the lowest number of votes, and you go to their second line and the second choice to that person, and those votes get added on to the other candidates if they were ranked, and so on. So then the next one that's exhausted, the ballots are, they take off the next person, and then they will add those to the next round until you get down to the final 2. Most of our races didn't necessarily go to the ranking, but some have. And at this point, our national seat, our House of Representative seats, which of course is meaningful at this point because they're so close down in Washington right now. Although anyway, that's the Republican candidate is, 49 point something or other, but they are not 250 at the last time that I looked. So, a lot of things kind of get up in the air if you go to the ranking piece. There's a lot of unknowns, although it looks like that will be a switch seat on the national level from a Democrat to a Republican seat. It's the margin is fairly clear in that one but again, who knows? Right now we have, the House currently has, like I said, we have these 2 races out. The one that really is too close to call, the other one, it's close, but not quite as close as that 10 to 20 votes. Currently we have a Republican-led majority. There's been an announcement by a group of House members last week that said they were forming a coalition. They only announced the top 3 leadership positions, and they gave some press release around what they were forming on. One was no additional oil taxes, and that one stuck out in my mind. I was trying to remember some of the other ones. I don't think they'll come up, didn't sound like attacking a lot of social issues and so on. But so they announced 3 members, and it remains unclear whether they have the necessary 21 members to form a majority, but it certainly looks like they will. And so that would probably put the Republicans, probably, except for the ones that have crossed over, because two of those leadership positions that have announced are Republican members. So it looks like there will be at least 2 Republicans in that organization, but most of it will be the House Democrats and a number of independents. So yeah, the clarity is will
You
come
have
in
us
time.
thoroughly confused.
I'm
Delana.
I'm sorry. I'm confused too.
No,
But
this is Alaska.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't 2 years ago, the freshman legislators proposed to be the majority? A bipartisan group of freshman legislators? That's what I heard.
yeah, that when you elect an incoming group that's larger than half of your majority, then they recognize their power, and it didn't quite happen, but it was certainly a stirring moment.
Okay, well, let's go to the next slide and leave Delana off the hook here.
Yeah, I apologize, you guys.
Okay,
When
Britt,
do we find out?
this is a little clearer. Idaho.
In case you're wondering, Idaho's a supermajority. except we might be
is
super,
nominal.
super now. 2 Republicans picked up seats in the House, so they went from a 59 majority in the House to 61 with 9 Democrats. And then in the Senate, 1 senator lost his race, so it dropped to a 29-6 split. The most interesting legislative sort of races at this point are the leadership races. And in the Senate, some of you may remember Senator Chuck Winder. He is the current pro tem. He did not make it through the primary cycle, and so there will be a election for the new pro tem, and it's created essentially an open seat all the way down, sort of a domino effect. So it is my expectation that everybody in Senate leadership in Idaho will be brand new. In Idaho, I came over from our North Idaho tour before I came up here, and that's where we usually make announcements about who's going to run and who's not. Our top 2 positions, no one's challenging our current speaker or majority leader, but there are 6 people who are running for assistant majority leader and 2 are running for caucus chair. So we are going to have 2 new people in House leadership when it's all said and done. We have statewide Republican control for all constitutional offices. In some respects, we're one of the more boring states in PNWER because so little really ever changes in terms of the makeup of our legislative bodies and who our constitutional officers are. So
Thank you so much, Britt. Can you pay your dues? No.
working on it.
Next slide. Okay, Montana. I think we have Mike Cuff on the line. He's been in the reorganization, but did we ever fix the sound? No. You can call me, Mike, and I'll put you on the screen here.
I'm really good at lip reading.
In the meantime, I think in Montana, they
Got Galloway here.
here. He's not on. Okay.
We have Representative Galloway. maybe he can
Okay.
talk.
Steve, do you want to make any comments on the changes?
Well, still retain our majority. It's not totally set because there's still provisional ballots. So there's still a couple races that are too close to call, but we'll probably lose 9 or 10 houses or 9 or 10 seats in the House and 1 or 2 in the Senate. So our numbers really aren't going to drop that bad because we'll still probably be 32, 58, 59, just depends on how a couple of these close races shake out. We have all new leadership. Our Speaker of the House who ran into the Senate, he is our president of the Senate now. And 2 other good guys there that are conservative. And then the same in the House. We've already got leadership, but there'll be quite a bit of shakeup just because of the shift of people who termed out in the House and had to go to the Senate. And some of us that just didn't get reelected. So there's a lot of change. We did, the state's completely red when it comes to the major seats across the state. And then we flipped the Senate House where we got rid of John Tester and have Sheehy in now on Congress. And then our other new congressman is our past insurance commissioner auditors.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to the next slide? This was alphabetical. I don't think we have anyone on from Oregon, but basically here you can see the breakdown in Oregon. It's very similar to what it was last time. The governor, Tina Kotek, is Democrat, and the majority in both houses is Democrat. Okay, Washington State is next.
All right, we're not as dramatic as other states. We might be picking up 1 seat in the House and perhaps 1 seat in the Senate, but we're still counting, and we tend to trend more conservative as the overseas ballots come in. And if you notice, USPS is slower and slower. And so I think my guess would be I would bet $1 that we gain 1 seat in the House and 1 seat in the Senate, so we'll have both Democratic control in both the House and the Senate. At the at the statewide level, the Democrats won the governorship as well as all the way down. So if anyone's interested, there are tickets for sale for the governor's gala on Wednesday after we open the second Monday of January. Let's see what else is there. Oh, yeah. So the most exciting thing will be Committee on Committees, where I have asked to serve again. So we will decide the jurisdictions of what each committees will cover, as well as, and that will happen probably the week before Thanksgiving. And then once we decide that, then we'll decide probably the first week of December as to who will be the new chairs. If any, there will be new chairs because some House members at least moved over to the Senate. And then I believe the Senate Majority Leader has been elected already. So Jamie Peterson from Seattle has been elected Majority Leader earlier this week. Our elections are much later because we have a lot more work to do and a lot more members. But yeah, I feel for those of you not in outright majority or coalition governments, because for 4 long years, the House Democrats were in 50-48, and those were the 4 longest years in the legislature. Not like 4 years in municipal government, that was even worse. But the Senate was Republican controlled for 5 years. So that was super difficult. So my prayers are with you.
Great. Well, I know everyone is, you're interested in your own state, but it's really important to have a grasp of what's happening around the region. So I'm very grateful for our panel. Let's have a big hand for the panel, and we'll let you sit down here. And we're gonna take a couple minutes, but I'm inviting up Steve and Bruce to just talk a little bit about the impact of the US election on Congress and what implications there are for our region. Thanks.
Yeah, if you can jump to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, we can do it up here. That sounds good. So I think everybody here is pretty familiar with what's happened so far at the national level with the president's race. But one thing we are still trying to determine, though, is where everything's shaked out with the Senate and the House. But likely what it's going to be is the Senate and House in Republican control. And so what that essentially means is we're going to see and we already have seen the flip in the Senate. So where it was Democratic control, there's going to be a shift in that one. So with that, though, one thing we really wanted to stress was that if you go to the next slide, you can see kind of the makeup of the federal members that we have. And the ones in bold are the ones that currently either won outright or we're replacing an outgoing member. And so we don't have too many new members coming in, but one thing we are seeing, though, is that we are losing a lot of longevity in some of our members that we had. So Representative Morris Rogers had been there quite a while. Representative Kilmer, where Emily Randall has taken that slot. And then in Montana, I know that Representative Rosendale wasn't there that long, but there's going to be a new member there. And then again, on the Senate side, where Senator Sheehy took over Senator Hester's slot. And then we're still outstanding on a couple races, the one here in the state and then also in Oregon. But essentially what we wanted to, really stress with everyone is that we do have a good working relationship with our members in the federal government. And so even when we do see these switches from leadership from one part to the other, we have the opportunity to keep that engagement going and talk with our partners in DC and get that interface from our partners here in the states and provinces to relay the messages that we have back to our counterparts in DC. And if you jump to the next slide. So this was the key leadership and what it was. And so you can see some of the majority members that are now going to be ranking and this is just in the Senate. And so you can see that a lot of those folks like Tester and Murray are now going to be ranking, but at the same time, the likelihood that Senator Murkowski will be becoming a majority member is a possibility. And the same with Senator Daines and Senator Sullivan on a few of those committees. So again, just stressing that point that even though we have this flip, there's still going to be some leadership in roles where our members are in pretty high slots on some of these committees and responsibilities.
Hey, Steve, let me just add a couple
Sure.
comments. We've been blessed in the Northwest by having incredible leadership from our congressional delegation in critical positions. And part of it is our longevity. When you think about Senator Patty Murray, who's the chair of the Appropriations Committee, which sets the budget. I think she was first elected in 1992. Your own Congressman Don Young, may rest in peace, was elected in 1972. And we have had, between the Democrats and Republicans, we've had strong leadership throughout the years, going back to Senator Magnuson and Jackson, and we had the Speaker of the House out of Spokane, Tom Foley. So this is going to be interesting because there are a lot of new members, and the power is changing. We have basically 3 red states and 2 blue states, and if you look at the current membership, right now, Patty Murray, as I mentioned, is chair of the Appropriations Committee. Maria Cantwell is chair of Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Not only obvious topics of interest to us, but she is leading a bipartisan effort to define the role of the government in artificial intelligence, which is a dominating project. I suspect that leadership will continue. Energy and natural resources, another huge area of interest. Ron Wyden from Oregon, Maria's on that. James Risch from Idaho, Steve Daines, who I think is going to be a very important member of the Republican leadership, because he is the one that chaired the Republican Senate Campaign Committee that flipped the Senate to 53-47 in favor of Republicans. And so the Republican caucus owes him and the administration a huge debt of gratitude, and I think he's going to be a very powerful figure in the administration. Environment and Public Works, we have Jeff Merkley from Oregon, who is a strong environmentalist, and your own Dan Sullivan from Alaska. The key subcommittee that Patty Murray chairs, the overall committee, is the Committee on Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies, an issue of major interest in Alaska. And that the chair is Jeff Merkley, and John Tester was on that committee, who's gone. Also, Senator Murkowski is the ranking member of that key committee, and we heard from her at lunch. Patty Murray's on that committee. Banking, Housing, Urban Affairs, again, John Tester was a majority member. He is gone. Senator Crapo and Senator Daines are on that committee. Environment and Public Works, again, Merkley and Sullivan. And then Indian Affairs, we have Cantwell and Tester, who's gone, and Lisa Murkowski and Steve Daines. So we have, and I should mention, it's not on this sheet, I don't know if it's up there, but the current chair of the Senate Finance Committee that sets tax policy is Ron Wyden from Oregon. So he will become the ranking minority member. All these chairs of committees, when the party switches, become ranking. If they stay in that committee, they become ranking minority members, which in many ways are almost as important beyond close votes. So I think we're going to be okay in the Senate moving forward.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add on the House side, we didn't go into a lot of detail on that, but there's going to be a lot of change over there. And also with the Republican administration in the House, they do have term limits on their committee chairmanships. And so you see turnover there as well.
Do you have a slide on the House?
I think we do, if I remember it. Is the next one? Okay.
Can you just talk about the issues that might
I think Steve's going to do that. I'm going to
be important?
So there you go. You can see
get a slide on it.
Representative Simpson, new House, and Zinke are majority members, and then Russ Felser also from Idaho again. So, but what's that?
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So anyway, you can see on the screen though, basically where our House members are sitting, and that'll likely change a little bit. Rosendale is going to be out of that slot there on natural resources, but for the most part, we'll see a bit of change here and there. And then we do have a lot of new members too. So then that time coming in as a freshman member, it does take a little bit of time to build up seniority and that type of thing.
I would just add a couple comments. We've lost Kathy McMorris Rogers, the Republican chair of the Commerce and Energy Committee, a huge House committee, very important. On transportation, we're lucky we have Rick Larson from Bellingham area. Rick is the ranking minority member, and transportation tends to be a committee that's less ideologically divided. They want to build things, which is good for us. But other than that, our bench is thin. Mike Simpson is a key member of appropriations from Idaho and the subcommittee on interior environment. But when you look at the House members that have been elected to leadership, the top four, the majority whip and the top four positions in Republican leadership in the House, two of them are from Louisiana, and one is from Minnesota, and I think one is from North Carolina. There's really nothing west of the Mississippi in terms of Republican leadership in the House. And our committee assignments are okay, but we're not in key critical positions. And so I'm a little nervous about House leadership in this next Congress and getting Northwest representation. So we're going to have to redouble our efforts in that area.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that with Kathy McMorris Rogers' retirement, she was the number 3 or 4 in that slot. So again, losing that leadership there.
And then I think there's a slide on the impact of policy.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and talk about that now, or do you want to?
If we can.
Okay, yeah, if we want to jump to the next slide. So we put these together just as, different topics that we see that are potentially going to be issues between the US and Canada with the new administration. And this was just done internally and then also with some of our other members just to, talk through some of the key things that we've heard from President Trump since the election, and then also things we experienced the last time he was in office. So of course, trade issues, again, with the border policy, energy policy, the demand for reshoring and friendshoring, and that's a continuation of the last administration. Actually, that's been going on for the last 3 administrations. And then the infrastructure bills that we had, so the bipartisan infrastructure bill and then also the Inflation Reduction Act. I mentioned those earlier, those are up for renewal. And then there's, from the comments we've heard from a lot of people, they want to continue to keep that money flowing and keep those projects going to get some infrastructure built. We had a conversation about the Columbia River Treaty this summer, and that treaty hasn't been signed yet, so it still needs Senate approval. Senator Risch in Idaho is a key component of that getting approved. And then there's also the regime change that they've had in the how the power is shared. That's actually already been implemented. So some of the things with that treaty are moving forward, but they still need to get it finalized. And then we've heard immigration, permit reform, NATO commitments has come up a little bit as far as, ways the US could leverage Canada. And then also just in general Arctic security and continuing in that vein as well. So these were just a few of the ones we had. I know that we were going to put it out to everybody here today just to see if there was anything else that we saw that could be other potential issues. I think if you jump to the next slide, we had a couple of questions too, just on, how our organization basically moves forward with knowing these potential issues coming up between the US-Canada relationship, and also just really focused on our region too. So just wanted to open it up to everybody today to talk through some of these things and find out, what everybody's thinking and get a sense on that. So I don't know if you wanted to take over here, Matt, or.
I'll add just a comment. I think on the BIL, which just to remind you all, 5-year program, 1.2 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars of investments in transportation projects throughout the country. Typically, we spend 600 billion, and now they're talking trillion. So these projects over the last 2.5 years, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow in our session on the infrastructure accelerator, have resulted in huge investments in Northwest infrastructure. And I'm hoping that Republicans and Democrats unite on the need to rebuild America's infrastructure. And so that won't be as ideological issue. Energy is going to be tricky because clearly this administration is more interested in fossil fuels and less on renewable energy. And And the most contentious piece of legislation, I think, is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is kind of mislabeled, but the reality of that tax credit for private capital, which is something that PNWER likes, public-private partnerships, is that 80% of the projects in the country have been in red states, job-creating projects, electric battery charging facilities. So the question is whether the administration is going to back off that. I personally think it'd be good if, based on our conversations today, if the Republicans and Democrats came around to renaming IRA to EISA, Energy Independence and Security Act. And then if the Canada and US could come up with a bipartisan agreement on energy independence, that might attract, and that includes all of the above, as former President Obama used to talk about, the fossil fuels and renewable and just marketplace to drive energy costs down to consumers. That will be of common cause. And I think that IRA legislation is where PNWER could add that and transportation, great value in DC and Ottawa.
Okay, they're asking us to take a 5-minute break before we start the formal executive committee meeting, so we can work out the sound for our folks that are online. So if we could just take 5 minutes, don't go far. We're gonna distribute the deck, which you did receive electronically, but and then we'll reconvene here in 5 minutes. Thank you.